Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. To some of you and peace to the rest of you. This is Black Heart Signer, Black in again, asking you to hit that share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I wasn't going to curse, but fuck it. I recorded this message and technology just started fucking up. So yes, I'm pissed off and I'm going to curse. I'm not capable of feeling some kind of guilt for it. Why the fuck the phone had to do this and erase the shit for no reason? Anyway, the thing I wanted to say is, as you've seen in the title, yes, it's better abroad. I want to make this very clear. A commentator of mine, especially on my video about passporticons leave loudly, commented and he said that he went through some stuff I could trace back as far as 1983 maybe, when he was in middle school. In the state of Louisiana, he grew up and he saw the colorism bit. And in 1989, he saw the shift and the trend, and he was finishing high school at that time. 1989, I'm sorry, I was starting, 1989 came around, I was beginning my second semester of sixth grade. That's what wound up happening. And I saw at that summer that some things were changing, but I didn't know exactly what it was. I began to realize how I was being blamed for stuff I didn't do, and it seemed to increase as time went on. And then fast forward to now, and I know what it was, and he's saying he went through the exact same thing, and this happened in Louisiana, and then he left and lived his adult life in Atlanta. This sounds familiar to some of you. He left in '89. I left my hometown in the Southeast to go live in a bigger city in the Southeast in 1995. What he went through was 6 years ahead of what I went through. And he said that he was being falsely accused, blamed, shown hatred, and that a lot of black women they suspected him of being gay. They would twist his words around to try to get him in fights with other men and arguments with women, this sort of thing. And I thought, this is exactly what I dealt with. And I want to say this too. It left me damaged to a certain extent. I'm aware of that. It may have done the same to him, it may not. I hope not, but it probably did because he's human. What I can say is that now, having been married to two non-ADOS black women, after being married to an ADOS sister, the most healing I ever did in this damage was in between my marriages to them and during the marriages to them. It took a lot. And this manosphere helped out a lot. Angry Man helped out. BGS helped out. They didn't know they were doing it. LAR Movement helped out to a certain extent. O'Shea Duke Jackson helped out. Edwin Anderson really helped out. Don Calypso did too. Through each of them, I learned something that I was able to use to help undamage myself or reverse a lot of the damage and undo as much as possible. He and I both went through this crap, and it was colorism. And I'm sure that a lot of chocolate brothers went through it too, because that's the community. They were stereotyped. They were reduced to dinglings. They were expected to have their lives screwed up in every other way, form, and fashion outside of the bedroom. They were expected to be nothing more than entertainers and great in bed by sisters, by African-American women. They were expected to be nothing more than this. Entertain you, make you laugh, make you nut. But when it comes to credit, their credit's supposed to be bad. Everything else supposed to be bad. But not because of white supremacy, just because they niggas. And we were supposed to be less in bed but have better credit because we weren't real niggas. So colorism swung both ways, and it hit both shades of men. It really did. The problem was that from what he was saying, he went through the same thing that I did, and that is that colorism was still directed at us even in adulthood, at ages past which we could no longer get away with directing colorist stereotypes at black women. Wasn't allowed. You can't be 23 years old, walk around talking about black bitches act this, that, and the other. You just can't do that. Or light-skinned women play too many games. Actually, I take that back. Nowadays, you can say that, but you actually can't say light-skinned women so much. You have to pretty much say if they're cute, they play too many games. And nowadays, brothers understand it. But see, when I came up before social media, you couldn't say that. I didn't say before the internet. One of the ways I found out about this red pill stuff is because I could not find anybody's to corroborate my observations between a woman's beauty and the mind games that they would play. And when I say beauty, I'm talking about strictly one thing really, and that is a low gut to chest ratio and size. Just that. In other words, not having a hell of a gut much big in comparison to your chest was enough to make the attitudes of women just go skyrocket, and the arrogance and the conceit go up to the go up to the troposphere. I noticed that, but I couldn't get anybody else. I mean, I couldn't find anybody else's written reports or web pages to the same effect. Guess what wound up happening? Found it on social media. I looked it up on YouTube one day, and that's when I found all the red pill stuff. I was like, oh wow, now I see. Now I know somebody's been saying this, but these are white dudes. But they're saying that black men already know this. Well, that's the U.S. for you. That's what you got to deal with. If you are a black Western man, you got to deal with, I mean, granted, I'm not even saying that I'm blue pill for the white bitch. You know I'm not. Because I blame her for teaching this to the sisters. But when you get away from the West, it actually is better. And I'm going to tell you how. You can tell. I live in a very sexually conservative Middle Eastern Arab nation. Very much so. It's better for me being here. Before I was married and after I was married, it's better. I'm not treated less than. Not because I'm black, not because I'm not black enough. I'm not treated less than for any reason. If I have to go and buy something from a store and it's a lady behind the counter, I'm not mistreated. I'm not given hostility. I'm just treated professionally. A lot of times I even get compliments for having learned enough of the language to speak like an adult. I say, well, thanks for the compliment. I've had some good teachers. I get stuff like that. So I have polite interactions with them. We don't flirt. You don't do that here. I'm not trying to date them anyway. But here, you don't get this mistreatment now. I mentioned that I had heard some local men say that they were tired of these women being friendly to foreign men. But what I've seen actually is that the women are polite in general across the board. So make a long story short, in this conservative nation, very sexually conservative, where you don't date before you get married, you date after you get married. You still, if you are a black man coming from the West, dealing with the Western sapphire, Becky or Sapphire, whichever one, when you get here, you're going to find a relief, actually. You really are. See, when you go to the store, grocery store, and you're going to buy some dessert, and there's a lady behind the counter doing the weighing and everything else, you're not going to be treated as less than or more than. It's not going to happen. You're going to be treated very professionally. Ain't going to be no eye rolling, no neck rolling, none of that stuff. When you go to buy some headphones at an electronics store, that's how you're going to be treated. When I went to buy some things for my wife before I finally joined her in the Emirates and we tied the knot, I was greeted and I was treated professionally. I was treated the same as every other customer. I'm not going to get this from Sapphire in the West. That's not going to happen. I already know that. I've been there before. I've gotten a stank attitude. Sometimes it was just me, and other times it was all brothers, depending on the sister, but that's what we had to deal with. Some say, well, you know, where you are, they'll salivate at the chance to marry a white man. Well, families might want something like that if the white guy has become Muslim, but to a certain extent, yeah. But then again, you know, a lot of women actually do prefer brothers. A lot of them prefer white guys. Most of them prefer men similar to themselves. So at the end of the day, you're not going to necessarily be mistreated. It's not going to happen. And there are things I got to set these folks straight on, but it is still far better than being in the United States. Now, what happens if you leave the U.S. or you leave the U.K. or leave Australia or leave Canada or leave Western Europe to go to a non-Western nation that is not as sexually conservative as the Middle Eastern nation to which I came to work? What do you think would happen then? How you think you're going to be treated? I can tell you what's not going to happen. You're not going to be told that you're not good enough to go anywhere else. You're not going to be told that you should have to settle for only raising other men's kids because you're genetically inferior, because you're not in the top 14%. You're not going to be told that that's not what's going on if that's what's going on. You're not going to be lied to and gaslighted about what you're being told. You're not going to have everything that they're doing projected onto you. You're not going to be told that you're not revolutionary enough and you're dominated by somebody else because their men are dominated by white supremacy. Do you think Japanese men don't feel the sting of white supremacy even if they don't know what it is? Now, they may think it's Western hegemony, but it's white supremacy. They feel the sting even though they don't know what to attribute it to. They know they ain't white. They understand this. So does this mean that actually Japanese men do complain about the way that their women are beginning to act towards them, but it has to do with the economy. But when you go into some place like Vietnam, where the women ain't going to just act out of pocket like that. They can get an education. They can work. They're allowed to take care of themselves. But act out of pocket and call their men all kind of bitch and motherfuckers and faggots and all this other shit because they didn't beat the white man. It doesn't happen there. Whether he'll slap her or not, that's not the way they do it. They don't even think about having that kind of reaction, having this kind of conversation and blaming their men because the French colonized them the first time. After the Chinese had colonized them, and then now they're still affected by the white West. They don't walk around blaming the men for this. All of them got it. But you don't know this and see this until you go somewhere else that is not Western. And you see it for yourself. You're not going to necessarily be treated worse because you're black in every single facet and form of life. And one of the things you ain't gonna see is black women fussing at you and calling you all kind of bitches and motherfuckers because you're black. You ain't gonna see it. And some people say, well, what if you go over there and you broke and you lose your money? Well, people may see a difference in how they treat you, but you're not going to have the women sitting up here telling you that you ain't shit. Now, they may not marry you, but they ain't going to sit up and tell you that you're worthless now because of it. It's not that either. What I'm saying is that there's a neutrality, and the neutrality is better than the crap that we get in the West, dealing with you, Sapphire, or your friend Becky, the one that taught you this stuff. I ain't one of them dudes that's red pill for black women and then turn around blue pill for every other woman. But what I am going to say is that when you leave the black Western woman alone, you leave her environment completely, and the white Western woman's environment, you leave both of them bitches alone. Because the women in these environments are already taken. They're there, but they're already taken. The bitches are the ones that are out there hyper available. They at the club, they in the church, they everywhere. When you leave them alone, you will see that the neutrality you get elsewhere, like what I'm getting, is much better. What you think is going to happen, you go somewhere where you're actually preferred, even if they don't hate their own men. You'll be surprised. When you are preferred, it doesn't mean that they hate their own men. It means they prefer you. You wouldn't feel bad for their men necessarily. But you don't know until you go. So come on in. Jump on in. The water's fine. And there's another thing that happens when you leave. I can breathe. I don't have to wear a t-shirt that says I can't breathe. Because them cops ain't out after me. Every last one of my problems I have is based on white folks. That's real. That is the truth. Even when Arabs give me problems, it's based on white folks to a certain extent. I'm just going to let y'all know it. But you got to get your passport and go somewhere else, brother, to find this out. They're not telling you to stay in order to save the black race. They're telling you to stay so that you're there to raise their kids without them having to do it. That's what it is. They're telling you to stay because they want you to raise kids that they would never let you conceive. Stephen Clinkscales pretty much said it. If you're a blue pill simp, you're there to pay the pussy price for somebody else to get that pussy for free. And that's all it is. So get the passport, go elsewhere, visit or live, and you'll find out that it really is better abroad. I hope this has been a benefit. Blackheart, sign and black out. Assalamu alaikum.